let us take a historical deep dive. The Shadow Campaign. The British Army wrote everything down. Every rumor, every skirmish, every name they feared. And in those brittle pages of empire, among lists of deserters and dispatches of supply lines, one name whispered louder than the rest: Flore, Bois, Gaillard. Their reports spoke of a woman who defied every rule of war, a woman whose followers moved through the jungle as though the earth itself guided them. She had no uniform, no banner, no commander above her, and yet she commanded respect, and worse for the British, fear. They said she struck near Soufrière, where the mountains meet the mist, then vanished into the ridges above Choiseul. Days later, fires rose again in Vieux Fort, plantations burning like torches across the night sky. Even the British soldiers began to whisper. The forest itself fights for her. They could not track her. Each time they advanced, her people melted into the trees, then reappeared behind them, cutting supply lines, freeing captives, burning storehouses that held the sugar of their suffering. One officer wrote, "It is as if the mountains themselves breathe rebellion." Flore's presence forced them to patrol day and night, to march under the punishing heat of the Caribbean sun, to carry fear in their hearts long after they left the battlefield. She became the ghost of the forest, a shadow in the leaves, a whisper in the wind. They could not catch her because she did not fight for glory. She fought for survival. And survival, my loves, is the most dangerous weapon of all. They sent scouts to capture her. They sent dogs to track her scent. They burned entire villages on the suspicion that she might be near. But she was never taken. Some claimed she died deep in the rainforest, her spirit merging with the soil she fought for. Others swore she escaped by boat to Martinique, where she lived out her final years in quiet exile, watching the sun rise over the same waters that once carried her people to bondage. But all who spoke her name agreed, the British never broke her. Because how do you break a spirit born of chains, tempered in rebellion, and sanctified by fire? And long after her voice fell silent, her legend grew. In the hills, villagers spoke her name with respect. Around firesides, elders whispered her story to children, not as history, but as inheritance. Among women, they spoke it with pride, for she was proof that strength is not always shouted. Sometimes it's carried quietly through generations. And among the free people of color, her memory became a symbol, a banner of defiance, a reminder that freedom was not granted, it was taken. You see, my loves? The British may have claimed victory in their records, but the forest still remembers Flore. The soil that drank her sweat still holds her story. And when the wind moves through the canes, if you listen closely, you might still hear her voice, whispering, "Nu te cagumen pu la vino." For history, my loves, is not what is written in books. It is what refuses to be forgotten. Queens of resistance, my loves, do you see? Flore was no man's shadow. She was no myth written to decorate the edges of history. She was the pulse that beat beneath it. She was proof that queens fight too, and that a woman's power can move mountains, even when the world denies her name. Her war was not for vanity, not for rank, not for a crown. It was for the survival of her people, for the dignity of the enslaved, for the hope of the unborn. Those who would inherit the island, she refused to surrender. But today, my loves, What have we done with her sacrifice? We have women still fighting, but this time the war looks different. They fight not in the forest, but in their homes, in classrooms, in hospitals, in the quiet ache of their hearts. They fight grief. They fight despair. They fight to raise sons in a world that keeps repeating old violence in new ways. We see mothers standing by graves they never imagined digging. We see daughters burying brothers. We see sisters lighting candles for men who never came home. We see our queens forced to be strong because our kings are falling, not to foreign chains, but to bullets from their own brothers. Flore fought for her people to stand as one. And yet here we are, a free nation still bleeding within itself. We build monuments to heroes, but forget to protect the living. We teach our children about battles won, but never teach them about peace kept. My loves, if Flore Bois Gaillard could rise from her grave tonight, what would she say? Would she not cry out? Stop killing each other. Protect your people, as I once did. Your freedom was not meant for this. Not for blood spilled upon the soil I fought to free. She would look upon our island and weep, not because we have forgotten her, but because we have forgotten what her struggle meant. Her rebellion was not simply to escape chains. It was to restore humanity, to remind her people that life, every single life, was sacred. And yet today, we treat life as if it is disposable. We treat our brothers as if they are our enemies. We speak freedom, but we live fear. We sing unity, but we practice division. Flore's war ended more than 2 centuries ago. Ours continues, not against empires, but against ignorance, hate, and silence. This, my loves, is not freedom. This is another kind of slavery. Freedom without compassion is just another form of bondage. If we cannot protect each other, if we cannot value the lives of our own, then we are still prisoners, not of chains, but of choice. Flore's machete may be gone, but her message still cuts deep. Protect your people, she whispers through wind. Defend love as fiercely as I defended freedom. Because every time a woman in St. Lucia stands tall, every time she holds her family together despite the storm, every time she chooses forgiveness over vengeance, Flore lives again. She was a rebel then, and through us, she still is. The spirit of Flore today. Sometimes, my loves, I imagine her, Flore, walking through modern St. Lucia, through Castries, where the market women call out with voices full of life, through Soufrière, where the hills she once fought in now watch silently from above, through Dennery, where the sea still whispers secrets to those who listen. I see her moving quietly, the hem of her dress brushing the dust of freedom she never lived to see. And as she walks, then she looks upon the people she once dreamed free. She would see beauty, the laughter of children running along the coast, the rhythm of drums at the seaside, the sweetness of life blooming from the soil her people once bled into. But she would also see pain, the weight that still lingers in our streets, the tears that still find their way to church pews, the violence that has traded the chains of iron for the chains of rage. I think she would whisper to us, her voice floating on the morning breeze. My children, freedom is not just the breaking of chains. It is the healing of hearts. It is the love you choose to give even when the world forgets how. Freedom is not the flag that flies. It is not the anthem sung. It is the peace that lives inside us, the unity we guard when the world tries to divide us again. Flore would stop there, I think, in a small chapel where candles flicker beside the Virgin Mary, where an old woman whispers a prayer for her grandson, and the scent of wax and faith fills the air. She would kneel beside her and say, Bon Dieu pas jamais dormi. Her machete may be gone, but her message remains sharper than ever. It cuts through the noise of modern life, through our pride, our anger, our fear, and reminds us we must protect each other, not destroy each other. We must guard the dignity of our people, the unity of our island. For every drop of blood shed today is a betrayal of the blood she spilled then. Every act of violence dishonors her courage, and every act of compassion resurrects her spirit. Sometimes I wonder if Flore walks unseen among us still. Maybe she stands beside every mother who cries in silence, or touches the shoulder of every young man tempted by darkness. Maybe she is the quiet thought that says, walk away, you are stronger than this. Because freedom, my loves, is not only a battle fought once, it is a choice renewed every day, in our homes, our hearts, our words, and our forgiveness. If we listen carefully, we might hear her still, not shouting, not demanding, but gently reminding, protect your people, heal your wounds, love your island, because it carries the bones of those who fought for you. And when the dawn rises over St. Lucia, I like to believe that somewhere, in the rustle of the canes, the whisper of the sea, and the warmth of our people's laughter, Flore smiles. The fire of womanhood. Do you know, my loves, that within every woman lies the same flame that burned in Flore? It is the flame that cannot be drowned by sorrow, nor silenced by fear. It is the fire that births life, heals wounds, and rebuilds nations when the world forgets Ham. We women are the carriers of life, the guardians of legacy, the silent architects of every home, every movement, every dream that ever dared to survive. When men fall, we lift. When hearts break, we mend. When hope fades, we relight it with nothing but faith and a trembling hand. Flore's spirit still walks among us. She is not a ghost. She is breath. She is heartbeat. She is every woman who endures. She lives in every grandmother who holds her family together through struggle, quietly feeding 5 mouths on one meal, still finding the strength to pray. She lives in every mother who works 2 jobs to feed her child, her feet swollen, her eyes weary. Yet she greets each morning as if it were grace itself. She lives in every sister who chooses peace instead of vengeance, in every daughter who forgives a world that never learned her worth, in every woman who carries pain quietly, not because she is weak, but because her silence is sacred strength. When I lift my glass tonight, I do not drink alone. I drink with every woman who has held tears behind her smile, with every mother who buries her pain in prayer, with every young girl who dreams bigger than her circumstances. And yes, my loves, I drink with every man who still remembers his mother's strength. Every man who knows that the softness of a woman is not weakness, but the echo of divine creation itself. I drink with every heart that refuses to let this island drown in blood, with those who still believe that love can save us, that forgiveness is not surrender, and that peace is the highest act of courage. My loves, Flore's war may have ended, But our duty remains to fight for peace when hatred tempts us, to defend love when vengeance calls our name, to protect life even when it is not easy, even when it is not ours, because womanhood, my loves, is not just about birth. It is about rebirth. It is about taking what was broken and building it again with trembling hands. It is about rising again and again, even when the world tells us to stay down. Flore's fire burns in us still, in our laughter, in our endurance, in the way we love even when unloved. And as long as that flame burns, no empire, no violence, no despair can ever conquer this island, because the women of St. Lucia are the heartbeat of her freedom. So tonight, my loves, raise your glass, not in sorrow, but in strength, for every woman who came before us, for everyone who walks beside us, and for every young girl who will one day carry the torch forward. May the fire of womanhood never die. The wine of Flore. This glass tonight, my loves, it is not just wine. It is memory in liquid form. It is courage distilled from pain. It is the heartbeat of an island that refused to die. It is Flore's courage. It is her fire. It is her breath, carried still by the trees she once walked beneath. It is her voice, whispering through the hills of St. Lucia. Protect your people. Guard their peace. Remember me not in battle, but in the love I fought to preserve. This glass, my loves, holds more than history. It holds the sacred duty passed from one generation to the next. The vow that freedom will not be wasted. So tonight, we vow to be like Flore, to guard, not to destroy, to rise, not to fall, to fight not against each other, but for each other, to speak life when the world shouts hate, to lift one another when despair drags us low, to remember that unity is not a dream. It is the legacy we were born from, because our island, my loves, was born from rebellion, but it must live in unity. Freedom was not written in ink. It was written in blood. Our ancestors paid that price with sweat, with fire, with faith unshaken. And now it is our turn to pay them back, not with more blood, but with peace. Let our bloodline remember that freedom has a cost, and that peace is the only repayment worthy of it. Let this wine remind us that every sip is sacred, that every breath we take freely was purchased by the ones who could not breathe at all. My loves, we cannot let their sacrifice fade into noise. We cannot let our soil drink any more of our own blood. Let the killing stop. May the spirit of Flore Gaillard live in every act of kindness. May her fire burn in every woman's heart, and may her courage guide every man back home. This was her story. This was our reflection, and the forbidden glass of wine. My loves, if you felt this message, if you've carried even one spark of our story in your heart, share it. Tell a friend. Let them feel the fire too. Like, share, and subscribe to the Forbidden Glass of Wine with me, Lady Divine, and let's keep this flame alive, one story, one sip, one truth at a time.